welcome back to I Did This Instead of Killing Myself, stand-up comedy and lifestyle podcast I host here out of my apartment, featuring comedians in the Southeast, South Carolina area. This is the week of June 28th, so I hope you had a great weekend. My guest today is a special guest. It's my dad, Mitch Bakker. So Mitch, or I just call him my dad. It's weird interviewing a family member, and I made him do this. So I'm so happy that he was a good sport about it. But yeah, my dad, Mitch Bakker, it gave me a chance to kind of brag about him. He is obviously somebody I look up to. But my dad is creatively very prolific. He is an industrial designer, owns his own industrial design company. He is an author. He's got a book called Resolve that I highly recommend anybody check out. And then last Friday, he just opened up his own taco restaurant in downtown Zeeland called Streats Tacos. In fact, if you're watching on video, we even have the business card out front here. So obviously, I love my dad, and it was kind of weird doing a podcast interview, but he's always down for anything, and gave us a chance to have a fun conversation about stand-up, about comedy, about things he has going on. And I'm really proud of my dad, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. So before we get into the interview, this is what's happening this week in local comedy, the week of June 28th. So we have the usual open mics here in Greenville. Coffee Underground tonight at 7 o'clock, run by Craig Holcomb. No cover for that. Really excited. That mic is starting to pick up. We had a great audience last week, so encourage you all to come out to that. At 8 o'clock, Habiba's Mediterranean Restaurant. All Jokes Aside is the name of the mic, hosted by Dante Anderson. That mic is also starting to take off, so encourage comics and audience members to come out to that. No cover charge. On Tuesday night, there's going to be no mic here. I'm going to be in Atlanta at the Laughing Skull on Tuesday. I'm really excited, but no mic here. So there'll be a mic in Doolittle's, at Doolittle's in Anderson. That's downtown Anderson, Doolittle's. That's an open mic, and there will be a feature act as well. I'm not sure who's featuring this week, but that's at 7 o'clock. Really fun mic. I did that last week. Radio Room back on this week at hosted by Adam Schulte. That's on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. That's back to its usual open mic schedule. No cover charge for that. Comedy Zone, Jokes Out Loud, hosted by Brandon Rainwater. That's Thursday night at 8 o'clock. That is back on, and it's an open mic this week. No competition this week, and that is $10 cover charge there. And then lastly, Friday, the Liberty Joke Show at the Pickens County Performing Arts Center, run by Tom Emmons. This is a clean comedy show. There's an open mic as well, and that is going to be starting at 8 o'clock on Friday. And we have a headliner there, Bill Baronke. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But anyway, that should be a fun show at the Pickens Theater in Liberty. All right, that's it for local comedy. Here's the interview with my dad. Hope you enjoy it. Well, I've never interviewed a family member before, so this is pretty.
Yeah, I've never been interviewed by a family member before.
So my dad's not a comedian, but yeah, we're here at Streats, which is the new taco restaurant here in downtown Zeeland.
Yeah,
so
welcome.
I made my dad do this. So, yeah. But I wanted to have my dad on because it gives me a chance to brag about him, because I give my dad a hard time a lot. But my dad is super creative. He's I'll probably do a little bit of this on the intro, but he's an industrial designer, a real estate guy, and this is his kind of third venture, owning his own restaurant. So I want to talk about that. But thanks for coming on, Dad.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This will be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was gonna ask. I always ask the comics. Like the first thing I ask is like, tell us a joke.
Oh boy.
I didn't even prep you
Oh,
for these
boy.
questions, so you
no,
don't.
no, you didn't. You didn't. Two guys walked into a bar. The third one ducked.
That's the one you pick?
That's the one I picked.
All right, that's pretty good. You know, with stand-up, my dad has a joke that I steal. That's the one that you actually wrote. That was the guy walking into the guy walks into the funeral home.
Yeah, go ahead and tell it.
Well, okay. This is my dad's joke. But guy walks into a funeral home, and the woman's mourning, and he says
She's a widow.
She's a widow. Yeah, she's mourning her husband, and he says, "Miss, I'm so sorry for your loss. Would you mind if I say a word?" And she says, "Please." He says, "Okay, plethora." And she says, "Wow, thank you. That means a lot." My dad's a good joke writer. I'm trying to get you to go on stage for the first time. Do you think you'll try stand-up?
I would like to try it. I mean, I'd like to do it once, you know. I don't know that I'll catch the bug like you've caught the bug, and you go, what, 3 times a week?
4 times?
4 times a week. That's crazy. That's really crazy. Yeah.
So
I can
much.
see the draw, though. I can see the adrenaline rush, the fact that you're sort of walking out on a ledge every time you go out because you don't know if you're going to bomb or not bomb.
Yeah.
And
Bomb a lot.
Yeah, and there's no formula. That's the thing to me that's so crazy about it is, you either do well and the people laugh, or they don't, and you don't know going in,
Yeah.
And sometimes, right, sometimes you can even have the same material in a different audience and bomb with the same material.
Exactly.
So it could be like the delivery. It
Yep.
could just be the crowd,
Yep.
just
The
doesn't
mood
have,
of the crowd could be
Mhm.
just for whatever reason. They could be
Right.
collectively in a weird, awkward state.
Right.
And you didn't tap into that energy to
Right.
diffuse it.
Right.
So you're just saying words at them, and they will just look back at you like stone-faced.
Right.
So to that point, I wanted to ask you, because you recently at Streats, this is a new restaurant downtown Zeeland, they had a little party / get-together, and my dad had to give a speech. And this was your first attempt at kind of infusing a little bit of humor.
Right.
So tell me how that went, like how that felt when you gave this speech for, I think, your employee, Amy.
Amy,
right?
who has been with me for 13 years, and that was actually this week, earlier this week, that we threw the party for her.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I it was kind of a toast in a sense to her, but it was also kind of an opportunity to talk about some of the funny things that have happened through her tenure, because obviously 13 years is a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and part of me was thinking about you and thinking about stand up and could I get the crowd to laugh, and
Right.
so there was obviously the toast was all about Amy, but in the back of my mind I'm thinking, oh, this is a little bit of what it's like. This is a little bit what David goes through.
You're an entertainer deep down. I love it.
I kind of am.
We'll tell the business card thing.
Oh yeah, so I talked about just a funny story. Walt Gerdak, this very eccentric guy that used to work for us years ago, he came up with a design on our business card, which was clipping off 2 of the corners. It was a really great design. The problem was somebody needed to clip those corners.
Right. Okay, so all the business cards had a rounded edge.
So all of them had a rounded edge on 2 adjacent corners, and it fell on Amy to clip all those corners.
How many cards did you order?
Quite a few. So
Like hundreds?
every time, yeah. So every time we ordered a batch of cards, Amy got the job of clipping all of those corners. But then one afternoon, she was kind of in the back room clipping the corners, and the clipper broke, and so I hear Amy. I said she cursed, but she really didn't. She probably said, "Dang it." And
I think it's funnier picture.
So I go in the room and I say to her, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Oh, this clipper broke." And then I just looked at her and I said, "Well, that's what you get for cutting corners." Which I thought was
that's such a good joke.
Hilarious. It's like I don't know, the perfect opportunity to use that line.
Yeah.
And it was literally what she was doing.
Yeah.
And literally what happened.
Yeah.
So the crowd laughed when I
Yep.
told that story.
A little bit of a rush, right?
A little bit of a rush. Yeah.
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 Gosh. Yeah. See,
Yeah.
you know why I'm a junkie with this crowd.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. You and I were talking, I don't know what it was, like a year and a half ago. And I was telling you that it was kind of like on my bucket list to do a stand up. And you said, yeah, I'd really like to do it too. And, I just got to get up the nerve. And then, I don't know, it was probably 3 months after that conversation, you sent me a picture of you up on stage, and all you wrote in your text was, your turn.
yeah.
And I was like, what? You actually did it? What?
Yeah. You know why I sent you a picture, right?
Why?
Because the set went so horribly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I told that earlier on another interview, but yeah. A picture was good because you didn't see how awful I did.
Right. The picture looked great. I mean, you had the comedy club behind you, and
that little club, that club in Greenville is really a fun one because it's a real stage and it's a good photo op.
Right.
There's a lot of bad comedy that gets done there, but there's also a lot of good celebrity comics that go there.
Well, in some ways, you have kind of influenced the design of this restaurant. You guys can't see it from here, but there's a planter wall right on this side of the restaurant, and all of the tables, there's like 3 tables that are adjacent to the planter wall, and they fold down. Because I was thinking about, if this was ever going to be used for stand-up comedy, it would have to be that wall, and the tables are in the way. So I want the tables to flip down and flip out of the way.
That'd be really fun. Really fun. Stand-up in a restaurant can be a disaster.
Right. Yeah, because people
don't ask for comedy.
They don't ask for comedy.
So we've done it before down in Greenville, and sometimes people are like, okay, cool, because one, we're not very good yet, but also it's just you never know what to expect.
Right.
Ideally.
But if you did the event as a stand-up event,
you could advertise it.
Then you could know that. Then the people would know that they're coming for the event. But I can totally see where hey, I just came in here to eat some tacos.
Yeah.
I'm trying to have a conversation.
Do you remember Louis C.K. talking about that? I don't know if I ever shared this interview with him, but Louis C.K. was doing stand-up 10 years, and he was in Chinese restaurants. People are he's like, hey, hello everybody, I'm here to, and they're like, I'm eating. Really? You're gonna be doing this now? So no, but I think it could be really fun here too.
Yeah.
Zealand's a fun community. Be a clean show for sure, I think.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, some of my stuff's too edgy, but that's okay. A dark sense of humor, but yeah. So you're a performer, I think, at heart. I'm trying to remember the first time. I know my memory of the first thing I ever saw you do. It was it was for some ministry, but you were doing some skit where Kermit the Frog was coming into the airport and you were doing voices.
Yeah.
And I also remember as a little kid, you would do voices with Bert and Ernie,
oh yeah.
For Josh and me,
Right.
What was the first time you did a performing anything performance related?
It was. Most people aren't going to know what Laugh-In is unless it's maybe on Nick at Night or something. But Laugh-In was a weekly comedy show when I was growing up, and there was Lily Tomlin played Edith Ann, and it was she would sit in this gigantic rocking chair, like she was a little girl, and she'd go, "My name is Edith Ann." And I don't have to say anything if I don't want to, So that's how she talked, and I kind of mastered it as a little boy, and so the first big event was being on stage as a 6th grader in a full assembly with the entire school. It was like a talent contest, or a talent event. I shouldn't say contest. So yeah, I did Edith Ann for the entire school. Yeah.
So you did the Edith Ann impression?
Yeah, I did the Edith Ann sitting in a rocking chair.
Were you nervous?
Oh yeah, I was very nervous.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But did it kick in when you got on stage?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you kind of
held
it together.
I was able to hold it together. Right.
Did people laugh?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How did it go again?
Or her voice?
Yeah, do it again.
Oh, she would just, I haven't done it in so long. She'd say, my name is Edith Laird, and I'll have to do anything if I don't want to. And then she would just go into different stories,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
Okay.
that was the first thing I've done.
Did you continue to do anything after that?
Well, in 1983, my girlfriend, who became my wife, who became your mother.
Yeah. My mom.
Yeah, her and I went to this event in Kansas City. It was called KC83, and it was like colleges from all over the country. 25,000 college students were part of KC83 in this giant arena. And they had a talent contest. It was a week-long thing. With all these
Okay. I
different
think I vaguely remember
speakers.
this story. Continue.
Yeah. And they had they set up like the David Letterman show, and so a lot of kids basically auditioned for it right there on the spot. And then I was able to.
So when you're auditioning for this show, are you supposed to have like a 2 to 5 minute act of some kind?
Yes. So
it could be anything.
I came up with an act. I wrote a poem. Again, an older actor, Jimmy Stewart.
Yes. Jimmy Stewart and It's a
Wonderful Life.
Yeah. Your favorite Christmas movie.
My favorite Christmas
He always
movie.
makes the family
all
watch
time.
A Wonderful Life on New Year's Eve or Christmas
Except
Eve.
your mother has never watched it.
And my mom doesn't like it because
she watched part of it. And then,
it's boring.
Yeah. So anyway, I used to do a pretty good Jimmy Stewart impersonation, but the impersonation was Jimmy Stewart as he was older, and he would go on shows like Letterman or like Johnny Carson or The Tonight Show, and he would pull a poem out of his pocket and he would read the poem.
Okay.
So I wrote a poem about KC83, and that's what I auditioned with, and that's what they allowed me to do. So I came on the show as Jimmy Stewart, and I put a bunch of powder in my hair so I looked like I was graying, and stood up and did my poem.
Do you remember the poem?
No, I don't remember the poem.
Can you do your Jimmy Stewart impression?
Oh my goodness! I usually warm up and practice for these. I don't know. I'll try. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be so bad. Jimmy Stewart here. I'm here at KC83. And that's kind of how we talk, but it was much better.
Oh my god!
Because it was practiced much better.
Dude.
I do have a couple of go-to voices that are pretty good that I can kind of do on demand that don't require practicing.
Like what?
Like Popeye. And again, I don't know who's watching, if they're going to even know who Popeye is, but
There's 5 people that watch this, so don't worry. I'm just kidding. There's probably more.
so Popeye is like,
So you do, huh?
You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of Full House. What's his name? Joey on
oh
Full House.
yeah,
he would always do Popeye for the
Popeyes, and yeah. But I had a whole slew of them when I was growing up, so I worked on and practiced voices all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kermit the Frog here. It's not easy being green.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm dying to get you to try stand up because I think I told you last night if you tried it, I could just picture you driving to Grand Rapids 5 times.
Oh, your mother
5 times a week. Mom
Your
would
mother would
kill you.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's
Yeah.
really fun.
No, I totally get it. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
And
wanted.
I got to hear you when I was down in Greenville.
Yeah, my dad came to Greenville about a month ago, and I had so much anxiety because they were there from Tuesday to Thursday morning, I think, and I normally do stand-up those nights, and I had no idea.
Right.
Because it was awkward. I don't like family members necessarily
Being
coming
at the
because I just
show,
feel
right.
nervous.
Right.
And then I knew you were going to ask, can I come to and I was like, I'm just going to force myself to do this. And I was really nervous, but it was fun. It was fun.
Right,
and
right.
I think it went okay.
You introduced me as your father, and you said, when he was growing up, his name is Mitch Bakker. When he was growing up, his friends called him Bitchmaker.
Yeah.
Which got a big laugh.
Got a laugh.
And it was true. That
Yeah.
was kind of my nickname among a few people.
Yeah. I think I told you having you in the room kind of helped diffuse the situation because it was I I'd say something that was kind of inappropriate, and I'd be like, Dad, that's not really, it's not literally true.
I don't approve of all his material.
Yeah. Well, I don't post my stand-up much.
Right.
I'm not good
Right.
enough at stand-up yet to share it that widely.
Right.
But we're learning.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Absolutely.
But it was good.
cool.
It was a relief. I was glad you got to see and have fun with.
Yeah.
And you would hopefully get inspired.
You were really funny. Yeah.
Paid him to say that.
I was worried that you weren't going to be.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
Like, yeah. But you were funny.
Like, oh my gosh, how long is he gonna keep doing this? I don't know. Well, so that like you, I wanted to ask you about because there's a video you shared on your personal Instagram recently that there's some customers at the window. They're checking us out. There's some customers outside that are trying to check out Streats, but it's not actually
Maybe
open
they
yet.
think it's a radio program or something.
Yeah, they're like, it's this old couple. They're super. Oh, that's funny. Anyway, you shared a video on your Instagram that had it was like a TED Talk, and it said something about how we've kind of like driven out creativity because as you go to school, you're supposed to get all good grades. You're supposed to like
have all the right answers.
And the fear of God is put into you if you get anything wrong, and that's kind of trading
fail.
out the creativity.
Right.
So, do you share any thoughts about that? Like,
yeah, no, I thought it was really insightful because I feel like that is very true. And, when we're young, we take a lot of risks. I even think of my own, things that I just shared with you, whether it was doing that in KC83 or Edith Ann in 6th grade or the many other things that my parents, your grandparents, Carl and Marie, were very encouraging for me, whatever I wanted to do. You know? So if it was most kids have a lemonade stand where they bring the, a card table to the end of the driveway. I had this really elaborate box all painted up with with awnings and the whole.
How old were you when you did the lemonade stand?
Oh, I was probably 3rd grade, maybe, something like that, 2nd or 3rd grade. But it was always like super elaborate, and I was always like, just making things in my dad's shop. They were just always, they didn't discourage me.
Yeah.
They never discouraged me from doing things,
Yeah.
But then as you get older, you kind of like, and you go through all the way through high school and you get into college. It's like you're just sort of taught that, play it safe. Don't take risks. The worst thing that can happen is failure,
Yeah.
And the reality is the best thing that can happen to you is failure because that's where you really learn.
Right.
So yeah, and I had, particularly my father, your grandfather, was extremely encouraging to me, and it's like I never felt like failure was scary, because he always told me that I could. You can do anything you want, in life. You have all the tools, and he was just very encouraging, which is, to me, one of the reasons that I feel like I've had some level of success, and I attribute a lot of that to him because I just dare to take risks,
Yeah, because the fear is, like, even going back to 6th grade, is what are people going to think?
Yep.
They're going to think I'm stupid. I'd rather just not poke my head up and just blend in.
Keep my head down and blend in, right.
Which is a pretty rational thought. I've Jordan Peterson's a big fan, or I'm a big fan of his.
Yep.
He said that's programmed into you for a reason. Because if you're like, in a herd,
right,
in like an animal sense, like the worst thing you would want to do is stand out. You're going to get eaten.
Right.
Like it's risky.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you could all, if you think about it just in the animal kingdom, like
right.
the best thing to do is blend in. Like zebras, the reason zebras in the African plain have stripes, like white and black don't really blend in with the landscape, but it's because when there's a herd of them, you can't isolate any one in particular. So it's hard for a lion to target you because it's just a blur.
Right.
That's what it's like camouflage.
Camouflage.
So if you're going to poke your head up and be the creative weirdo,
right,
really risky. That's why not a lot of people do it.
Right.
Or that's my understanding of what Jordan
Right.
Peterson said.
Right.
Hopefully I have that kind of right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really risky to do that.
Right.
And I think it cracks me up, the lemonade stand thing, because I mean, second or third grade when you did that. So like, you're 60.
Right.
So there's decades in between that. Like, if I think of this as a lemonade stand, like, you went all out on the lemonade stand and how you decorated it. Like, if you're watching this, you can't really tell, but this is all, like, my dad went all out on this.
On this restaurant.
Yeah, spared no expense. It's really impressive. Like, maybe even overboard for it. And then I think you can see in the background there's this mural, which is really cool. So it's got a fun branding and theme and everything. So
yeah, it kind of focuses on like local landmarks. We wanted to kind of have a focal point when you came in. This restaurant is really kind of fast casual.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Streats Taco Kitchen, and it's kind of really themed off of street tacos from around the world. You know, so yeah, so it's not your traditional, you know, Mexican taco.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like ahi tuna or Korean short rib or you know, even cheeseburger.
Yep. And there's a brat taco.
There's a brat taco.
What is that one called? Mom named that one, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh man, I can't think of the name of it. It might
Lombardi?
be Lombardi. The Lombardi taco. I think that name has stayed with it. But there's like 16 tacos on the main menu. But it's been really fun. There's so many layers to this. Isn't going to be my day job, but it's been really fun to you know, be involved in all the different layers of a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from the layout to the you know, the menu to the ingredients. And even there's like a real green component to the restaurant.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah. Well, we kind of set out to say, how can we make this like the most environmentally friendly restaurant ever? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not saying it is that, but I'm not saying it's not that because I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But literally, in the front of the house, which is where the customers are, there's literally no trash. It's all compostable. So the only trash that would be brought in, or the only trash in the restaurant, has to be brought in through the clientele.
Okay.
So it'd be like a gum wrapper or a piece of gum or whatever, and we're actually calling it landfill. So there's like a bin over here with a little 4-inch radius that says landfill. So we want to kind of, you know,
discourage
it's
people. Harder to throw stuff away.
It's harder to throw stuff away when it's not called trash. It's just called landfill.
But everything you give the customer is biodegradable.
Everything, yeah. So
that's
like
cool.
Corn-based plastic. So it'll I think it's 28 days. It turns into soil.
Yeah.
So you want to feel like, I always feel bad when I go to fast food because I'm throwing this stuff away that I know is going to go in a landfill and it's probably not going to ever turn into soil. And it's just always going to be a problem.
Yeah.
You know, so we wanted people to feel good that they came in here and whatever container they got, they could throw it in and know that it's just turning into soil.
Right.
Which is actually gold.
Mm-hmm.
You know, good soil is really this generation's gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, glad you said it's not your day job. Yeah, my dad, industrial design, owns his own industrial design company, and you've been in furniture design for like your whole career.
My whole career.
So that's like what, 35, 40 years? 35
I
years.
don't know.
Yeah.
Lose track.
So,
I don't even want to keep track anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So now you're at a point in your career where you've been blessed enough to have like other things you can do. So that's what the restaurant is. But
yeah.
But yeah, so the environmentally friendly thing, I remember you telling me that's getting really big in just industry now.
Right.
Like materials and things. Like your big clients now care about that they can claim that they're being environmentally responsible.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that kind of excites me about the restaurant is there's like a philanthropic side to it as well.
Yep.
You know, where all of the tables, I talked about the tables against the planter, or the wall hung tables against the planter, but all the tables can flip. So you could turn this restaurant into an event space.
Okay.
So we want to make it available to like nonprofits, for, you know, events that they're having. The menu wall, you plug your computer into it and it becomes a presentation for whatever presentation that you're giving.
Mm-hmm.
Gift certificates that we want to make available to the nonprofits to give to those that, either those that are in need or, like Good Sam might use it as an incentive for people. They work in the housing industry. So somebody makes their rent, 3 months in a row, as an example, would get some gift certificates to Streats to take their family out.
Okay.
That
helping people get back on their feet, kind of
helping
deal?
people get back on their feet. And then even the people that work here, kind of second chance. We really want to look at people that are needing a second chance.
Right, like people who may have a criminal background or something.
Criminal background,
homeless,
or a teen mom that needs the flexibility.
Yeah.
And has a very difficult time finding a job that has that kind of flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just on the front end of that because obviously we haven't even opened. So all of this is a little bit ethereal, but it's the intent behind it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you worried it's not going to go well?
I'm actually not. There's been a lot of really great energy and buzz around this place. So I'm pretty encouraged, but given I know nothing about restaurants, I have no idea if I should be encouraged.
Yeah.
Or not be encouraged.
Right.
Or be discouraged. I don't know.
I like your strategy, though, because it seems like you've surrounded yourself with a lot of people and got a lot of good who do know what they're doing. I feel the same way. Like trying anything and you're like, I don't know what the heck.
Right. But we found some really great people across all different levels of the restaurant. So, husband and wife team who you met this morning, Katie and Peter.
Yeah.
They have a company called Catalyst, and they help restaurant people or people that don't know anything about restaurants to get off the ground. They're basically a restaurant consulting firm. Leverage, which is our marketing firm, really, really great, and they specialize in restaurants. The interior designer specializes in restaurants. We even had a consultant for the environment, which is her name is Autumn Sands.
Okay.
So, so really, really great people that have, helped us put this together.
Yeah. That's great. I think it'll go great. I was just thinking of that Seinfeld episode. Remember when Jerry goes to that restaurant, Babu Bhat's restaurant? It's like a Pakistani restaurant.
Yeah.
And like nobody's going in. And Jerry like adopts this guy as like his pet project. He thinks, but it's just such a disaster. Yeah. No, but this is awesome. I'm excited.
David has every single Seinfeld episode that's ever been aired memorized.
It's
every line memorized. Yeah.
And
I really feel like Jerry Seinfeld and then other comedians, Louis C.K., who you just saw for the first time in person, I feel like they have been prepping you or preparing you, particularly Jerry, your entire life for kind of following in their footsteps, even if this is a hobby,
Yeah.
But I mean, just doing what they've done because, and you were even telling me, seeing Louis and, it's kind of bigger than life when you think about him, watch, whatever, Netflix or other things that he's done, big venues. But when you were at this more smaller venue and you're, I don't know how many feet away from him you were, but you're fairly close to him.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, he's just flesh and bones like me. And a lot of the jokes and content kind of like paralleled some of the things that you had been writing.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, I just sort of brought it a little bit closer to.
Yeah. He's just a dude with a microphone.
Right.
And it's surreal. Like I remember you got me tickets to Jerry Seinfeld for my birthday.
Oh yeah.
Years ago,
yeah,
and you spoiled me. It was like third row or second row, or
that was awesome.
We were super close, and when he came out, we're like, "Oh my gosh, there he is! He's right there. He's talking about
Grand Rapids.
Yeah, he's talking about
it's so grand. It's so rapid.
Yeah, it's so funny when comedians pander to the location they're in because it doesn't matter. I'll take I'll be like, yes, he's talking about us. Woo.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, stand-up's really surreal in that way. It's there's really no barrier to entry. There's nothing special about it, and it's just as hard for even a seasoned comic to try new material and do well. And obviously you get better at it over time. But,
right.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, you can just literally don't have to have anything except some jokes in your back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And even like podcasts. I mean, podcasts are pretty easy to get into now.
Yeah, they are. This is an example.
I don't mean to.
We're cursing the world with this podcast. I still think the family thinks I'm nuts, but who cares? So who is your favorite comedian? I think I might know the answer, but
goodness. Well, growing up.
Yeah, growing up.
He's not my favorite comedian now.
Bill Cosby?
Bill Cosby. He was, oh my goodness. Yeah.
A lot of people have that answer.
He
was huge, wasn't he?
Oh,
for your
he
generation.
was huge. And then you had, he had so many spin-off things going on, like the Fat Albert, was a cartoon.
Yeah, I forget he did that.
Hey, it's Fat Albert.
That's another one I did.
Just remind me of Michael Scott. Actually, my Aunt Tammy gives you crap all the time about how you are Michael Scott.
Yeah, which I do not take as a compliment at all. Although I did work in an office
cares?
that's so similar to The Office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bill Cosby?
So, yeah, Bill Cosby. And I saw him with my parents in downtown Grand Rapids. I think I was like a senior in high school when I saw him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he just, he walks out on stage. And it's almost like you could tell that he was one of these comics that didn't even need to prepare, and he would just interplay, with the crowd. And he was hilarious. Yeah.
Didn't he kind of just sit too? Like
yeah,
he was talking
would sit
to you
in the
like,
chair.
like he was your grandpa or something,
Right.
Just having a fireside chat or something.
Yeah.
And how long was the show? Because I remember hearing that
Oh my goodness, it was long.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like an hour and 15 at least, maybe an hour and a half. And
Yeah.
then he did 2 shows back to back.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because I remember there's a documentary, Jerry Seinfeld has one called
Right.
Comedian, where
Yeah.
he's talking to Bill Cosby, and then he's talking to Chris Rock about Bill Cosby.
Right.
And Chris Rock says, dude, you got to see his he does 2 hours. And he said he was there with somebody else, and they only knew one joke from having seen him previously.
Right.
So, like, it was all new material.
All new
which
material.
for anybody who's ever tried stand-up,
Yeah.
like,
He was super gifted.
2 hours. Like, I have 7 minutes of things
Yeah.
that kind of work
Yeah.
after doing it almost a year. So for him to be that
Yeah.
prolific with stand-up is pretty cool.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I really liked Jerry. I liked Jerry's material and Jerry's stand-up when he was younger.
Yep.
I think he's great now, but I don't know. There's just something. Maybe it's just because I've changed, or maybe obviously he's changed as well. But I don't like his comedy as much as I liked his comedy when he was younger.
Yeah. I think it's hard for Jerry a little bit, and I'm talking like I freaking know him.
Yeah.
But my observation is that he always had this old school mentality of like, kind of like Jay Leno did, of like the act is sacred.
Mm.
And this is kind of pre-cell phones,
Right.
everything, new stuff. He maintained the same act for a very long time.
Yeah,
that
he did.
Refined and polished and like held up to this. And now comedians come out with a new hour every year. Like that's Louis' approach.
Right.
So he really pushed himself creatively because he understood that like people are going to see it.
Yep.
This is like, I'm not going to argue with the reality. This is what audiences want now. Like I have to come up with new stuff.
Right.
And so he's kind of held on, like, Jerry's even said before in an interview, like, when I see a comic, I don't want to see your new hour. I want to see the act. I want to see what you've crafted out of marble and refined.
Right.
And, like, I want to see that. And, now it's kind of shifting. So
Jim Gaffigan is another one that
oh my gosh, he's so funny.
That I like.
He's probably the funniest clean comic I've seen.
Yeah. And I don't know how he does it. It's like he mesmerizes people. He just walks out there and just starts talking, and it's just like, methodical. And then he falls into he does this. I love this like normally it'd be a voice in your head that he does like this real high pitch. Oh my God, you're doing that again.
Where he says like what he thinks the audience is thinking to his previous joke.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the audience or what's in his head or
Yeah.
But he has this like alter ego thing, alternate voice,
That's kind of cool.
It's cool, yeah.
This is a little technical thing, but I'm trying to figure out how to do that in stand-up, because if you say something that gets a really strong reaction of like, whoa.
Yeah.
You almost have to like shift to their perspective and then acknowledge it versus just plowing right through.
Oh, okay.
Like, and say what they're thinking, which I think is what he's kind of doing.
Right.
To soften whatever. Like if you're trying to go to an edgy direction, you can't just, you have to kind of say, it was kind of like when you were in the room when I was trying to do some of those really edgy jokes and I had to step out of it and say, oh my gosh, Dad, I don't actually do that. And then that kind of softened and kind
Softened
of
it,
gave
yeah.
the audience permission to laugh harder.
Right.
Realizing it's playful. It's
Sure.
not serious.
Sure.
So those perspective shifts kind of help
Right.
bring the act along.
Right.
I think. I don't know. But anyway, so you talked about like creative failure and or not being afraid and giving permission and being encouraged. I always ask the comics, like, what is your biggest dumpster fire failure story ever? And to be fair to you, I didn't actually give you time to think about this in advance. So
Oh my goodness. Okay.
got one?
Yeah. Yeah. There was an event. It was called Veneer and Vodka, and it was one of our biggest clients with IDA. Was kind of pairing up this
IDA it's Idea Design. That's his company.
Yeah, it was kind of pairing up education at a vodka distillery with their products. So we had this executive workstation, Veneer executive workstation. So we invited, lawyers as well as some high-end designers to this event.
So you had your products on display there?
Our products was on display, and they did a tour of the distillery, and then we had a presentation with our products.
Okay.
I was supposed to just be part of the presentation and not the entire presentation. So I had prepared some, my parts. But then when I got there, and there was 3 of us that were presenting, one was kind of the local, I'll just call him a rep.
Uh-huh.
And then the other one was from an executive from Gunlock, and then myself. The executive from Gunlock had gotten sick, so he wasn't feeling well. So he's like, I have to bow out. And then in the 11th hour, the rep also decided to bow out. And so they turned it over to me to present the entire thing. And I really wasn't prepared.
Uh-huh.
And it would be kind of equivalent, I guess, to a comedian just completely bombing, because I don't know. There were a point where I just kind of just froze and said nothing and just stood there staring, wondering if something was going to come out of my mouth or not.
How long into the presentation was it that
not long.
blanked?
Yeah, it was bombed early. You know, I just started talking.
How long was the pause?
It was long. It was very long. And then I recovered, but it was obvious that I wasn't prepared, because I really wasn't prepared. It was like extenuating circumstances that, led to that. But I don't know what else you would do. You'd just maybe not do the presentation at all.
How many people were there?
Enough. I mean, it was probably 15.
Okay.
15, maybe 20.
That almost makes it
Makes it a little
worse.
Actually,
If it's an intimate. So what were they thinking? So that you got introduced as the designer?
Yeah.
Did they think you were autistic or something?
Probably.
He's an eccentric genius, but he's horrible in front of people. Just
exactly.
Maybe it played better. Man, this guy must be really good.
That's funny.
Stephen Hawking or something.
Yeah.
That's not
Anyway, that was my biggest dumpster fire, probably.
That's a lie. You picked
It was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. It was pretty bad for me internally, even if it wasn't as bad.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Anyway.
So you just bombed the talk, huh?
Bombed it. Completely bombed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're ready for stand-up already?
Well, and I also had some vodka. That was the other thing that was the other key thing that I think really contributed. You don't really know how potent these drinks are that they were making.
Yeah.
And so, we're going to do a distillery tour first, and I think that led to it too.
Yeah, that would be that would be
So
trippy.
to this day, like if I've got to speak, I don't have
Yeah.
anything to drink.
Yeah.
Before
Right. I stopped drinking last year. You all know that, but
Right.
I can't imagine having alcohol, being in one headspace. Like, okay, I can kind of relax. I only got this little bit, and then it changes after it changed.
Right.
You found out after you started drinking, right?
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because if you just have a little bit of alcohol, I mean, it can be anxiety producing if you have to then go.
Right.
I remember that happened to me one time. It was at my buddy Nick's wedding. I had recited Bible verses during the ceremony. It was like this really beautiful Catholic wedding,
Oh,
so they had
right.
several people talk. So I'd finished during the ceremony doing my little Bible verse, and I was like, okay, cool. I had a little roll and went fine. And I was like, okay, now we can start drinking. So we were drinking with the bridal party. Then we went to the reception, and the priest just left. He didn't show up. So Nick and Catherine came to me, and I had already had like several drinks, and they were like, Dave, the priest bailed. We need you to say grace before dinner.
Oh no.
And I was like, dude, I've been drinking. I'm not going to pray before this whole group. So
So you did?
I did.
Thank you for coming.
I wasn't drunk, but like I was definitely like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And then like I got up there and like I think I said, hey, so the priest apparently just didn't care to show up or something. I said something about that,
right.
and people laughed at that.
Oh, okay.
And then I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I think I said the shortest
prayer
ever. It was like, thank you for blessing Nick and Catherine's union. Bless us with our bodies. Amen. Or something in Jesus' name, amen.
That's funny.
So, yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good one. So, I wanted to talk about your book at some point because that's the other thing I forgot to mention. So, this is like the fourth venture you've been into. So, my dad wrote a book. It's called Resolve. I'm in trouble because I haven't read the whole thing yet. But
what's
I
up with
wanted
that?
to hear about like what inspired you to write a book.
Okay.
And maybe like just like an overview of like what it is, what you want people to get out of it,
Sure.
or like stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't know, like going all the way back to when I was younger than you in my 20s, for whatever reason, I always thought about writing a book. I always kind of had this desire to write a book. And then as I got older, the desire didn't go away, but all of the objections in my mind were always there. Like, what would I write about? Why would I write a book? You know, and then I ran into this guy at a party. His name is RJ, RJ Reagan. And I was talking to him, and I was telling him that I kind of had this desire to write a book, but I wasn't really sure what was motivating me, and I kind of wanted to get a handle on that before I wrote a book. And then he said to me, don't ever ask that question. If you have a desire to write, just write the book, and don't ask yourself that question, because otherwise you will never, ever write it.
That's a great point. So I wanted to stop there because that is a very strong force of like resistance.
Yes.
And I feel this really strongly. Doing anything creatively. If you put yourself out there at all,
Yeah,
It's
there's
like-
resistance.
it's like people are going to think I'm an idiot. Like people think like if I'm writing a book, oh, look what I have to say.
Right.
I think I'm special.
Right.
Which is tempting. Like it's how
Right.
do you combat that? And like I think that's great advice. Just start it. Who cares? You can delete this.
Yep, just do it.
It takes so much to get over that for most. That's why I think most people don't do it.
Right.
You could be critical of anything creative.
Right.
Literally anything. You could
Right.
be like Van Gogh. Look at this idiot
Yeah.
writing a painting or painting a painting. Look at this stupid. What?
Right, right.
Ooh, I'm Van Gogh.
Particularly those kind of paintings that were very abstract back in the day.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway,
Right.
that resistance factor is
Yeah.
very hard. So it's like, oh my
So
gosh.
it's interesting because I had that conversation. It was many years after the conversation that I actually set out to write the book. But that what he said to me sunk in deeply, so that when I was finally prepared to write, it allowed me. It basically just gave me permission to write the book.
Yeah.
The impetus behind it, or the thing that kind of like pushed me over the edge of writing the book was my mom's death, your grandmother's death, and it just the brevity of life hit me really, really hard. And I was kind of sitting there by her bedside as she was dying, and I had a lot of time to sit and contemplate. And I was thinking about your grandfather, my dad, who had died 25 years earlier, and then I was adding up her age and realizing that she was 25 years older than me. And that very week, I turned 57, which was the age my dad was when he passed away. So I'm in this middle space of looking back 25 years, looking forward 25 years, and then also realizing how fast that 25 years had gone.
Right.
And realizing like how as you get older, time goes faster. Like the next 25 years is going to go even faster. And then looking at my mother in her deathbed, thinking, well, how many of those next 25 years are going to be healthy years, So I was like, well, that gave me a sense of urgency of if I'm going to do things, I got to do it now,
right?
And I got to do it intentionally, and I've got to really discipline myself to do it. And writing a book, I hope it's not my last book. I know it's my first book, but I hope it's not my last. But writing that book was kind of my first step towards, I guess, leaving some breadcrumbs behind. I realize the impact of a book might not be in my lifetime, but when I think about the fact that somebody could be reading this, 15, 20, 100 years from now, because that book is going to outlast me, that to me is kind of motivating as well.
Sure. You think about mortality a lot.
I do.
Yes.
I do.
My dad's obsessed with death. one of my favorite.
Yeah, the tagline is, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to talk about the "What About Bob" clip that we always laugh about.
Oh, right.
With the little kids talking to Bill Murray, and he's like, "You're going to die. You are going to die."
And that's a lead into one of my chapters.
Yeah, is it?
Yes,
is it?
yes,
yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah. I read that chapter.
Yeah.
I got that far.
Right.
But what difference does it make if it's tomorrow or 80
Right.
years? Much sooner in your case, but
Right.
You're big on arithmetic too, of like the years that go by and everything,
Right, right.
and where you're at.
And where I'm at, right,
Mhm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I got to 60 really quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, the tagline of the book is a journey weighted by grief, disrupted by truth, and awakened to purpose. So it starts with really a lot of death stories, or some trauma stories that, it's kind of like, I don't know, Stephen Covey, talks about began with the end in mind. And for me, death is the end. So I'm sort of beginning the book with
Right.
the end in mind. But there's a lot of like hope and encouragement in the death stories as well. So I'm not going to like recount all of those, but to me, they're not depressing death stories. They're actually encouraging death stories, because you see the light at the end of the tunnel. You see Christ, kind of woven into these stories,
Right.
which are really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bit of a memoir. There's a lot of my life's events and stories, but then there's also reflection on, some of my favorite scripture or some of the most disturbing that I'm troubled by, that I try to unpack.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's really helpful for people if you beginning with the end in mind, like it ends in death.
Right.
To me, like as you get older, like it's hard to understand that.
Yeah.
Until you start to see the years fly off, and you're like, wait,
Right.
this isn't gonna last. You know that, but you don't know it.
You don't know it. Right.
You don't internalize the
You
truth
don't
of
know
that.
it. Right. Yeah.
And tell me about the chapters, because there's something. Didn't you start it prior? Wasn't it going to be like reflections on the number of years of your life at the time that you wrote it?
It was going to, yeah. It in fact, it still is. It's 57 chapters, which is quite a few. They're not all that long, though. There's only a few in there that are a little bit longer than the others, but for the most part, it's the chapters are pretty small. But there's 57, and that was based on the year that I wrote it, but the years that my dad lived. So I really wanted to honor. I was going to actually title it 57, but I was intentional. In fact, the last chapter, I finished the last chapter 15 minutes to midnight of my birthday of my 58th year. So I wanted to get it all written in my 57th year.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I have to be a good son and read the rest of it. Cause,
Yes, you do.
Because it's been pretty well received, right? Like you've heard a lot of cool
It has
feedback
been.
from people.
It's difficult to launch a book in a pandemic. So, but yeah, some people, it's just interesting. It's like any other book, I suppose. You know, some people have really been impacted by it.
What do you want people to get out of it?
I think I want people. A friend of mine, his name is Kevin. He was reading the book, and we got together for some coffee, and he said, "Mitch, this is your book," and he put his hand out like this, and then he said, "This is what your book forces people to do. It's basically look over the horizon to eternity, you know." And I guess that's what I want people to become more awakened to the fact that this isn't all there is, and look beyond this life into the next life, and what you do here is going to impact and have an effect on the next life.
Eternity,
right. So that's what I'm hoping.
powerful stuff.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
So what's funny about me is I'm like super serious and super goofy, and I feel like of all of my children, I feel like you're probably the most like me in terms of you can go real deep in your thoughts, but then you can just be the goofiest person ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's something weird about humor. Like I don't know that I understand it, but like if you think about what makes something funny, it's really deep and serious in a way, and it's complicated, but
Yeah.
because there can be both. I mean, a lot of comedians are really introspective, thoughtful people.
Right.
They think about life because you got to notice what's odd in life. You got to observe life, reflect, and then kind of piece it together in a way that makes people, because surprise is what makes things funny.
Right.
But surprise and recognition combined
Right.
make a laugh. So it's like, in order to be successful at comedy, you have to have a really complex way of thinking about things in a serious way, which is why I'm dying to get you to try it.
Right.
And it's also a weird paradox of like, kind of like maybe writing your book. It's a paradox of like ego and self-awareness and humility packaged together.
Right.
Because if you're writing a book or you're on stage, you're like drawing attention to yourself. You're
Right.
like you're ultra
You're right.
egotistical act, but it's also like
Right.
for it to work or resonate, you have to connect in a way
Yeah.
that's it's really hard to thread the needle.
It is really hard with a thread needle. I think that's been the hardest thing about the book. I think it's harder to promote the book
Yeah.
than it was to write the book, because promoting the book feels, like you said, very self-serving or egocentric or self-aggrandizing, because you're, to build an audience. And I actually went through a course called Book Camp, which was really good. But it's all about, you got to build your email base, and you got to build your Instagram, and you got to build your Facebook and Twitter, so you're like building all this social media. But there's a point where you kind of step back and go, wait a minute, how much of this is about me?
Yeah. What is
and
this
the
all
promotion
for?
of myself?
Yeah.
Versus what I really intended to do, which was take the focus off me
Yeah.
and tell stories about other people. Or if there's stories about me, it's not stories that are building me up. It's one of the stories is there's many stories in there, but the loss of a job. And how devastating that was. And, so you kind of go from, the full intent of the book to starting to drift away. And then you got to pull yourself back and go, wait a minute,
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's hard to not obsess over it.
Yeah.
Like, remember, was it RJ who gave you the advice of just do it? Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Right.
I kind of had an epiphany not too long ago of like obsessing over how it's perceived is vain.
Yes.
In and of itself, kind of.
Yeah.
Like if you're agonizing over it, you're really kind of making it about you. Just turn that part of your brain off for a second and just do it.
Just do it.
Don't obsess over how it's going to be perceived, because don't
Right.
worry, but most people are not even going to care.
Right. Right.
So
You wouldn't worry about what people cared about
That's
you
the
if you
good
knew
effect.
how little they did, you wouldn't worry about what people thought about you if you knew how little they did.
or
think
seldom
about
they
you.
did,
Right,
maybe.
or seldom they did. Yeah.
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 So don't take yourself so seriously. That's why I also like comedy. Is like if you just because you need to fail a lot, you
Right.
know, to keep crushing the ego.
Right.
Everything you get
That's
crushed
true.
again.
That's
You
true.
It's like therapy in
Right.
that way.
And then by the time you do get to a place where you people are really genuinely laughing at you, it's not as important to you.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
hopefully,
Right.
yeah, you don't.
Or it's
hold
not
it.
like you're not hanging on that.
Mhm.
You're building your craft.
Right.
Right.
And that's why, like, when I saw Louis on stage the other night, it was like you could tell he was a beaten down. He had been formed
Right.
by years of experience. I mean, shoot, he's been canceled by everybody,
Right.
you know, and he's still doing. He's still
Well, I remember
Becoming something.
He had a bit that talked about how this wasn't gonna last. You remember that? Like he
Yeah.
would talk about that. This ain't gonna. Oh, who you kidding? This ain't gonna last. Like yeah,
Right.
I'm famous for like a year. This ain't gonna last.
Yeah.
and he was right.
Yeah, I don't think he thought that was gonna actually literally happen when it did and how it did, but he's like, yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
But the thing that I like about Louis, and I'm obsessed with Louis. I'm sorry, but is he's been somebody that could survive something like that,
Right.
because he's kind of creatively done it his own way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like he's maintained control. Like there's a lot of gatekeepers in entertainment where you
Yeah.
used to have to get on HBO, you had to get a sitcom, you had to.
Right.
But he's always built this thing where he's got an intimate relationship with his fans, and he's got enough money now where he can just self-produce a special. He knows how to do that. He's got all of these skills that make him a well-rounded person that he can kind of continue doing that. It kind of reminds me of you because you had, I hope you don't mind me mentioning it, but you lost a job
Yeah.
in the industry. We witnessed that as kids.
Yeah.
You had more of a conventional, like you were probably more dependent on the industry
Yeah.
in terms of just being an executive. And then it took losing that job and starting your own thing, which was maybe hard and painful, but it enabled you to have a lot of independent success and do everything that you wanted.
Yeah. It was. I mean, often they say that losing a job. Most people lose a job say later that it was the best thing that ever happened. And I don't know that I would say that. But it wasn't a bad thing. Put it that way.
Yeah. Cool.
For my ego and also, just for a future redirection.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you just need that kind of like jolt to do something different. It's like
Yeah.
the jolt of, mom dying, the jolt of losing the job helped me form my new company.
Yeah.
The jolt of mom dying helped me to write the book.
Yeah.
And then I don't know about the restaurant. I don't know.
Well, I would never have started stand-up if the pandemic hadn't happened. I interviewed for a job, didn't get it,
Right.
and was crushed by that.
Right.
And then that wasn't enough. I had to throw my back out and have back surgery and be literally thinking, like, I mean, I was miserable. Like, back pain's really bad and really crippled. Like, you're just
Right.
immobile. And
Right. It was awful.
that's what it took for
It
me
was
to
awful.
start to try
Yeah.
anything creative.
Yeah.
Or just do it. So,
I
yeah.
did not realize that it was the back that. That's
Well,
cool.
that was kind of like the last
domino to fall.
Yeah, basically.
Cool.
So anyway, I was gonna ask you. So you design, real estate, restaurant, book. Is there any other creative venture that you want to try that you haven't yet that you kind of have in the back of your head? I know. Well, stand up. We've kind of already called that out, but maybe anything else.
Podcasts.
Yeah,
I have
do
talked
podcasts.
about a podcast. I think it would be really cool to do a podcast. No, I'm kind of in a season now where I'm wanting to kind of, cut back on some things, yeah, and even like the restaurant, I'm not running the restaurant. I hope to, have the restaurant be a foundation for, things that are more philanthropic. I really kind of, I guess as I look over the horizon the next 10 years, I'm really wanting to write more, get some speaking engagements and speak more, and then also serve more.
Mm-hmm.
And the serving is so that I have something to write and speak about.
Okay.
So that's kind of those are the activities that I want to have. But I'm actually going through some work right now with a consultant to help me like look at what the next 10 years, in 10 years, what I want that to look like,
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of going through that process right now. So I don't really know exactly. I can only identify the activities, which is what I identified like a number of years ago now, which is what kind of like caused me to write the book, because I really do enjoy writing and I really do enjoy speaking, but I haven't written much and I haven't spoken much.
Okay.
So those are two things that I really want to do. But the serving, because like the prison ministry that I was involved with pre-COVID, was just so life-giving to me. Speaking teaching in the prison, through prison fellowship.
So you spoke at prisons and did.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was like a Bible study in the prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd go through different books and whatnot, and some of those men are just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I want you to make a cartoon.
Cartoon.
Yeah. I just had that impulse to say that because I think that'd be really fun. An animation, like
An
some
animation.
Yeah.
Because you've been staring at the.
Yeah. Well, I know my dad doodles a
mural.
lot, and I used to like to doodle when I was little, and yeah, I think that'd be kind of cool. Or
That would
just
be fun.
but only. And it wouldn't have to be like that exhaustive, but I feel like nowadays there's like you have a lot of great content, like between what's in the book and
Right.
your ministry stuff. But finding a way to like package it in a really fun, cool way. I don't know.
That's a good idea.
Just a thought. Okay, cool. So we're over an hour, but I have a couple more questions that I ask everybody.
Oh my goodness.
That doesn't. I think it's going pretty
Okay.
fast. I don't know.
All right.
This is the heaviest question I always ask. But what is your biggest regret in life?
Oh my goodness. Wow, you didn't prep me for any of these.
I know. Hold the mic closely. Not super close, but
My biggest regret. Huh. You know what's funny is I really don't have huge regrets.
you know, a lot of comics have that answer.
Yeah.
Which is cool because I think a creative person takes
Right.
risks and even the
Right.
failures.
Well, I will share. I mean, I do have one that comes to mind, and that you know about that you hadn't known about for quite some time, and it was when I was in high school. I ended up getting my girlfriend pregnant, and she went through an abortion, and it was
That's heavy. You didn't have to share.
I didn't have to share that, but if you're gonna, if I'm gonna be honest about my biggest regret, because she wanted the child and I didn't, and so I really was the one that encouraged her to go forward with that. So that to me to this day is the biggest regret that I have.
I set you up for that one.
Yeah.
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 Oh my god.
But I'm, that's in the book.
It's real though,
It's real, and
people have,
it's very, a big part of my story and a big part of, kind of my focus too, going forward. But yeah,
wow, that's a heavy one.
sorry.
In the book.
It's in the book.
You learn all about that. Man. Yeah, but I mean, good for you for sharing it because it's like, talk about, being vulnerable.
Yeah, and a lot of men don't share their story, and even though they have a lot of regret. So, I mean, I wrote about it as an encouragement to others who have gone through, similar things. And when I've shared, and I'm sharing it more publicly now, and I shared it at a public event in Holland, Roe versus Wade anniversary.
Right.
And I had a pastor come up to me after, and his story was very parallel to mine.
Mm-hmm.
So you just never know.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So last question.
Yes.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Can I give two of them?
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
My father used to always say, good things come to those who wait. And he would often say that to me when I was like, like, for instance, wanted to get my first car, and it was like the first one I looked at was one I wanted, and my dad was always, like, hey, good things come to those who wait. You need to save more money, or and the other one was opportunity is the most powerful thing in life. It's also the most irretrievable. So that was one that I read. I don't even know who the author is of that, but I came across that, and that really sunk in that, you have opportunities that come along in life, but oftentimes they only come once. And, you need to have the wisdom to be able to seize those opportunities, and because it may never come again.
Mm-hmm.
Ever, So I always kind of think about those two because they're kind of counter to each other, but they're a nice balance to each other.
I think so, because there's when you're young, you have a tendency towards impulsivity.
Yeah.
And that can be bad. Kind of reminds me of like Pinocchio when he runs off to join the fair.
Right.
Or when he runs off to get drunk and then he turns into donkey. Like you don't want to be impulsive, but you also don't want to miss out on an opportunity that you'll never get again.
Yeah.
Because life is short.
Right.
Yeah. The second part of that, is that what the second part is, like seize the day kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me of Robin Williams in Dead Poets Society.
Right.
Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
When he takes all the kids out to the hallway and they look in the trophy case and they see the guys from like 100 years ago that were their age in the class.
Yeah.
And he said, "Can you hear them?" And he whispers like, "Seize the day, boys."
Seize the day.
Like they're all pushing up dandelions. They're all dead. So
Right.
you better make work of that.
Right.
While you can. So it's pretty good.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think you have a wedding to go to. And
Yeah.
Mom's going to be mad at us.
Yeah.
So. Thanks for doing this, Dad.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's been fun.
You actually have stuff to promote. So what's your Instagram handle? And
so it's Baker. It's at Baker Mitch.
Is it Baker.Mitch?
Mitch, yeah. Sorry.
2K's Baker.Mitch.
Yeah, 2K's.
Your book stuff's on there, right? If they want to know more about that.
Yeah, the book is MitchBakker.com. Again, 2K's MitchBakker.com is the website where you can read blogs and you can sign up for my newsletter.
You got a ton of stuff to promote. This is cool.
You can even order the book there, but you can order the book on Amazon. If you want a hard copy of the book, you get that through my website.
Okay. Good deal. And Streats Taco Kitchen.
Streats Taco Kitchen is opening in, what's the date today? 23rd, maybe? The 3rd.
Yeah.
It's opening the 25th of June.
This won't go up until a couple of weeks from now, so maybe we'll put it up right before it's about to open. So it might be opening in a couple days.
I don't know how much your audience is in Western Michigan anymore, but
some of them are.
Some of them are. Yeah.
But what's the Streets Instagram? Is it just Streets
Taco Kitchen?
All one word?
Yeah, all one word.
And Streets is spelled STREATS.
EATS.
Okay.
EATS, yes.
All right. Well, thanks for doing this, Dad, again.
Yeah.
I forced him to do it, but I think I had fun.
Yeah,
so.
It's been really fun.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.